On your Wednesday episode of Locked On Blue Jays, it's new hosts, but it's the same old Blue Jays, baby. It's all coming up on today as we dig into a 2-0 loss to the dastardly New York Yankees, which makes this week just a little bit more sweaty for Jays fans. It's all coming up.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Blue Jays. This is weird, as I'm normally in the Toronto Raptors chair. I am Sean Woodley. He is Mike DiStefano. I'm pointing the wrong way on the video because I'm really bad at knowing how the spatial awareness works on the screen. Either way, welcome in to Locked On Blue Jays, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can find the podcast for free wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Just hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And it's the time to be subscribing as we are in the final week of the Toronto Blue Jays 2023 regular season. Hopefully more ball to come. And let's kick things off, I suppose, with an introduction of these two new dudes you're seeing on the screen or hearing in your headphones. I am, as I mentioned, Sean Woodley. He's Mike DiStefano. I host Locked On Raptors on the Locked On Podcast Network. Mike is the co-host of Locked On Leafs. We are Toronto sports dudes. And I would say, Mike, afflicted Blue Jays fans just like can't quit this very annoying, irritating team.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, like, just as I feel like a lot of Jays fans have this feeling this year, just as you're ready to quit on them and think to yourself, all right, pack it in, season's over. Like when they lost, to the Texas Rangers in that series a couple weeks ago, then you're just thinking, okay, that was the season. It's over. I can pretty much pack it in. And then they go on a big run, and they get themselves back into a playoff push and into a playoff spot with a wild card. And you're feeling good just as the hitting seems like it's coming around, coming off of that series in Tampa. And then all of a sudden they get stymied by the Yankees, at home at that. And it's just like, oh God, what is going on with this team? Like, it looked like things were going so well and that they were finally getting around the corner, especially offensively. And then you get a performance like you did last night. It is very Blue Jays-esque of them.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone had any illusions coming into this week of games against the Yankees and Rays, at home, mind you, like thinking this was going to be easy and stress-free, you haven't been watching the 2023 Toronto Blue Jays, baby. But that said, I mean, there's still a lot to like, even from a game in which they score no runs. We'll talk about the pitching. We'll talk about Kevin Gausman in particular. We'll get into some of the takeaways from that game. Just a quick sort of setting of the table before we really dive in on the nitty-gritty of the game against the Yankees last night and what's to come for the rest of the week. Mike and I are stepping in here to host the show from now until whenever the season ends. We'll go through the end of the playoffs and then hopefully pass it along to a new host. We had a recent host change on the show, and we're here stepping in. And so just be forewarned. Me, typically, I treat the Toronto Blue Jays kind of as like my sicko, crazy sports fan vice. Like, I cover the Raptors every day. I have to be pretty like level-headed about things over there. I'm sure you feel the same way about your coverage of the Leafs. I've always left the Blue Jays as just like a thing that I get crazy about and text my friends swears about. And so that's the angle I'm coming at this with. As we get more immersed, I'm sure we'll dive into the baseball savant and the exit velocities and all that stuff. I definitely dabble in that kind of stuff. But right now, it's going to be a lot of raw fan reaction, and hopefully that actually kind of fits the moment of what we're at right now going into this last week of the season, all the stress, all the excitement, all the suspense of the playoffs. And so hopefully we can be a spot where we're kind of meeting you where you are as a Blue Jays fan on what it's kind of like a pop-up podcast. We'll be around until the playoffs are over. Mike, how would you kind of describe your relationship with the Blue Jays in general?
I mean, I'm probably pretty well the same. I think you said it pretty good. Like, we in our day-to-day lives, we cover the other Toronto sports teams, and so I've always the Leafs have been a team that I've had to cover with a level head. Where the Jays, that hasn't necessarily been my beat, I guess, if we want to use an industry term, and I've been able to just kind of watch as a fan. Right. And just be a fan of the team. And I always have been. Like, baseball has been, a big love of my life for many, many years. It was the one sport that my grandparents really really loved. So I was kind of introduced at a young age from that side of my family, and
Grandparents liking baseball is just like a secret like
it's
pathway
peak.
to a
Like
relationship with your elders. It's awesome.
my grandmother, to this day, the biggest Jays fan. Like, she watches every single game. God bless her soul. She's out in Nova Scotia too, so the games don't start until like 8:07 first pitch out there, and she's
How
watching
thrilled
this
was
thing
she
until
about the
like
pitch
11 o'clock.
clock coming in? Is this like a massive change for her, just to like increase her experience watching the team?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it gets her 25 more minutes of sleep a night this season as opposed to others. Because, dude, like last year, I remember watching some of these games go until like 10:30. It's like we're going on to 4 hours of baseball. We're still in the eighth inning.
Yeah.
So yeah, the pitch clock was actually a nice addition this year, and I'm sure she deeply appreciated it. But no, I'm like you, man. I'm a fan of the team, and this is the perfect time to be jumping on the moving train though, because it's exciting. It's
Yeah.
really exciting to be a Jays fan right now, to be watching this team, to be covering this team. Like, they're in a playoff race. It's exactly where you want them to be. And if you're covering a team, you want that excitement to be able to talk about, to be able to reflect on. And I know it's not quite done yet. It's not set in stone, their playoff berth. I think Fangraphs has them something at like 96% odds to make the playoffs. So, we can't sit here and say they're going to the playoffs, but, they've got a pretty good shot at doing so. And I'm just excited to be here for the ride.
Yeah, I'm hoping that there's not a 1980s esque total collapse over these final 5 games. It will take a lot for the Blue Jays not to make the playoffs. It's obviously helped by the fact that the AL West is just bludgeoning one another right now.
Yes.
Seattle getting back in the win column with a win last night. None of these teams are good, is the thing. This is kind of how I feel, and it's honestly why I feel pretty good about the Blue Jays, even with all of the frustration we've talked about this season. Is like, I don't know. Am I supposed to be scared of the totally injured Rays with Shane McClanahan out, and their whole starting rotation seemingly in some state of disrepair? A bunch of their regular hitters either out for injury or for crimes. It's and the Orioles. Like, really, we're just supposed to like be scared of the Orioles? See, this is where the fan comes in. This is going to be fun. I get just to tap into being a psycho. I'm really, really excited about this. Yeah, Mike, we are going to dive on into the game against the Yankees last night. Of course, a 2-0 loss. Kevin Gausman does his thing in what's probably his last start of the season. I would imagine we'd next see him in the first game of the wild card round next week on Tuesday, I believe is when that series would kick off. And so, we'll talk a little about Kevin Gausman, who rocks and has just been a total delight to watch this season. And we'll get into some of our takeaways from the game as the offense really, really stumbled against Michael King and his nasty, nasty stuff, and a couple of, perhaps unfavorable calls in situations that maybe it would have been nice if it went the other way. We're not going to do ump talk necessarily, but we'll talk about Vlad, a couple of at-bats that went wrong for him last night, and much, much more. We'll get into all that coming up in just a second here. But first, let's dig in and tell you about today's first sponsor, and that is Nutrafol. It's a thing. People are worried about losing their hair. Men, you always are going to be kind of at that concern. Oh no, I have a little hair falling out. Is this a bad thing? And if you think that losing your hair is inevitable, that's just not true. You can take control of your hair's future with Nutrafol's science-backed hair growth supplement for men. You don't have to choose between better hair growth and your health. Nutrafol provides a whole body health approach for men that promotes healthier hair. No drugs, no compromises, just better hair. Did you know that 80% of men will experience hair thinning in their lifetime? It's totally normal and fine, but it doesn't have to be your fate if you don't want it to be. You can get ahead of that with Nutrafol. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement, clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. Nutrafol supports healthy hair growth from within by targeting root causes of thinning, such as stress, hormones, environment, nutrition, lifestyle, and metabolism through whole body health. Take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for their healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men NUTRAFOL.com/men and enter the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. All right, let's dive into the 2-0 loss in Game 1 against the Yankees at home last night. Dome open, Mike. I'm sad I wasn't down there. Late September open dome. It's a beautiful thing. Our world is going to hell weather-wise, but hey, the baseball's nicer to watch in person, I guess, if we're looking for silver linings. Let's dig into big takeaways from this game. Obviously, the offense sputters. Kevin Gausman, awesome. He goes, let me just pull the lineup here for him as I've lost it. Kevin Gausman, where are you? Where's the pitching? 6 1/3, 6 hits. Yes, 6 1/3. Wait, I'm looking at the wrong box score. I'm a fool.
He went 7.
You go up.
7. Kevin Gausman was great last night, man. And like Kevin Gausman's just been Kevin Gausman all year. His problem hasn't been pitching. It's been the run support. And that, of course, was what happened with him again last night. But he did his thing. He did his part. 7 innings strong, gave up just 3 hits, ended up with 5 Ks, couple walks on the night. Didn't give up any runs. And look, when you pitch 7 innings of shutout baseball, you should win that game. You should 100% win that game. Especially when you're at home and the Blue Jays unable to get to Michael King for the second time in the last week or a couple of weeks here, and it's really frustrating. They ended up with just 3 hits all game. 3 hits. That's all they were able to get. Yeah. Like that's just it's really frustrating when you look at this offense and you think back to what you thought it was. You were going to see from this offense all season and just has not been there. And like I was saying earlier, just when you thought maybe things are starting to roll, you see, George Springer finally had himself, he's been pretty hot of late. Bo Bichette's been pretty good all season, but he's had, some knocks lately. They had Vladdy, and get a couple of home runs the other day. And you're thinking, okay, these bats, are they starting to come alive? You're getting Kevin Biggio has been good. Brandon Belt returned to the lineup last night. You're thinking to yourself, hey, the offense is here. The offense is coming. They need to show up in this series against the Yankees, and it just didn't happen. Michael King shut them down again last night, and then Jordan Romano comes into the 9th inning, which we'll get into whether or not that was the play or not for John Schneider. But he gives up a 2-run homer in the 9th, and the rest is history. Jays take the L and don't gain any more advantage in that wild card race.
Yeah, we will talk about Romano and his split fingernail, whether or not that should be a cause for concern for the entire city of Toronto momentarily. But yeah, just kind of go. I found the right box score, by the way, Mike. Off to a great start on the new podcast, just reading incorrect box scores.
What box score were you using?
I think
ESPN?
It was from last week. Yeah, it was like I searched in Blue Jays Yankees September 26th box score, and then it gave me one from like last week. Very useful. Love it. Anyway, Gausman, 7 innings, 3 hits, 5 Ks, 2 walks as well. He's just awesome. It closes out his season with a 3.16 ERA. He's probably not going to win the Cy. It's probably going Garrett Cole's way or Sonny Gray, but certainly Cy Young quality stuff from Kevin Gausman this season. Yeah,
I hope
this
so.
was not
I got
even a game.
FanDuel. I got a little FanDuel futures at like plus 2,000 for him to win a Cy Young. I'm hoping he wins a Cy Young.
Rooting for you. That's a good bet to put down. Do it next year. He's going to be awesome again, I would presume, because that guy rocks. And I feel very good about him starting game 1 of a playoff series. Boy, oh boy, that feels good. When it comes to last night's game, they don't even really threaten very often in this game. It was the 3rd inning, which was kind of the time where they had a real threat going. Just 2 at-bats in this game with runners in scoring position. They go 0 for 2. Vlad strikes out with the bases loaded in the 3rd on a very bad strike call. Like, we can call it that. It was a 3-2 pitch, way outside. Should have been a walk, should have been a run, should have been a big pivot point in the game, but it wasn't. Obviously, you can't get too upset about that. Things are going to come out in the wash when it comes to good and bad calls over the course of a season. It's just magnified when you're in the final week and you have the Astros and the Mariners breathing down your necks. So not a lot you can really do about that. I don't think Vlad should have swung at that pitch even. I think it was a pretty clear take, and it's just the way she goes. And then later on in the game, Kevin Kiermaier's up with Dalton Varsho at 3rd after picking up an extra base, and just kind of grounds out, and that's it. And that's all you have for threats to score in this game for the Blue Jays. We saw over the weekend against Tampa that this offense can do it. Like, there's no doubt about it. It is an explosive offense when it's all hitting. When Vlad and Springer are going, this is a really good baseball team. That's just kind of how it is. What's your trust level in the offense right now? Did that Rays series change things for you? Are you gonna look too much into a single game where Michael King is absolutely dealing? Are you gonna go with the sort of bigger picture of the season where they haven't really been able to hit whatsoever? Like, how are you with the offense right now? Do you feel as though like the Vlad resurgence is real? Do you feel as though things are really kind of coming into form for this team, and maybe this game against the Yankees and Michael King was a one-off blip, or are you going for the bigger picture here as sort of the thing that's informing your opinions on the offense?
I guess we'll find out tonight because they get Garrett Cole.
Oh yeah, great. That's fun. Yeah, really
like,
excited. Normally they do own Garrett Cole. Not last week, but normally they do.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. That guy usually owns the entire league, so we'll see how that works out. But I don't know. It's weird, man, because I started to have hope that things were starting to turn around, and then last night happened, right? Look, I still am shocked that this team has not been able to put up runs and find offense. Like, coming into the year, I thought this was a stacked lineup. Like, I remember we were all sitting there, back in April, and we're putting up the whiteboard of the team back in like 2015, 2016, then this team, and debating like, oh, which team was better? Like, who has the deeper lineup? Who had the more well-rounded lineup? And, there was a lot of reason to think that this year's team could be better than those teams who had some playoff runs. And it just has not turned out that way. Vlad has had a terrible season for his standards. And even last night, like you mentioned, he had the bases loaded in a 3-0 count and is unable to cash in a run. Right. Yeah. Ends up working into a 3-2 and strikes out. Like, and then same thing. He had another opportunity. Bo Bichette gets on base last night, and he grounds into a double play to end the inning. Like that. Yeah. That's just been what has happened with Vladdy, and it's been an off year for him. It's been a down year, and then again, you get a little bit of confidence. You get a little, oh, is he coming around? Hits a couple of dingers for the first time in a game the other night, and then follows it up with this stinker. So I want to have trust. I want to have faith in this lineup, but every time I start to think that they've turned it around, they go ahead and forget how to hit baseball. So yeah, I don't know what to think anymore, man. I really, and this is where the fandom comes in, right? Where it's just the team just frustrates you, and the offense has been incredibly frustrating all season long, but now's the time to get it going. Like, there's 5-6 games left in the season. Like,
just 5, baby.
The playoffs are right around the corner, and that's where you're really going to need that offense to shine, because the pitching's been there. It's been there, right? It was scoreless through 8 innings last night, and the Jays were unable to put up any runs to put up a fight in this game. So let's hope that it was just a little blip. And what we've seen over the course of the last week or so is more so where the Jays offense is at than what we saw last night.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the good thing is you're not going to face Michael King or Garrett Cole in the playoffs. That's good, because the Yankees didn't make the playoffs. Did you learn about this? It's pretty hilarious. They missed the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
It's really cool. So yeah, there's that. I'm with you though on the pitching side of things. I'm also with you on I can't figure out where my feelings lie when it comes to the offense, right? Like, I think, back to the fandom element, I'm so prone to the first time Vlad hits a ball hard and in the air being like, he's back, let's go. And it's happened like a million times this year. And look, he hits a couple dingers over the weekend, and it's like, oh, you know what? Maybe it actually is time. Like, maybe that Sunday game is kind of and you look back, he's kind of had a better month or so production-wise anyway. Maybe you feel pretty good about how things are going into the playoffs, and then you get a stinker like this one, and it makes you feel confused. Do I think it dooms the Blue Jays for the next 5 games of the playoffs? No, I think there's every possibility that he gets right back on track and he kind of continues the recent run of pretty decent play, and same with Springer. But I think it's been like emotional torment trying to keep up and figure out what the hell this team is doing. The thing that is trustworthy, I think, is pretty clearly the pitching staff and the defense, right? Like, we saw it again last night. Like, Bo's making nice jumping plays and looks rock solid over there. The Jays continue to have the best team ERA in baseball, the best starters ERA in baseball. all that stuff you would think is going to be pretty conducive to playoff success. Quick note on sort of that side of things, Mike. As much as the offense has been very frustrating, does the defense and the pitching kind of give you that hope that, they actually have the ingredients that are always talked about as the things you got to have in the playoffs? Of course, the playoffs are 60% luck. But where are you at with your sort of confidence level overall in the pitching and defense, understanding that we're about to talk about Jordan Romano in the final segment and maybe a little bit of queasiness there?
I mean, the pitching, you can't ask for anything better. Like you just said it. They're number one in the league when it comes to team ERA in the majors. Like they are pitching their asses off. Like Kevin Gausman went 7 innings of scoreless baseball the other night. Chris Bassett has been a really strong pitcher this year. I mean, Yusei Kikuchi's been outstanding this season. Barrios, like Ryu's pitched better of late. Like outside of Manoa, really everybody I think has been as or better than advertised. So I think that the pitching, you got to be satisfied with it. They added to that bullpen throughout the season. Jordan Hicks has been unbelievable of late. Hasn't a lot of runs since August 25th, like a full calendar month since that guy's allowed an earned run. So, I think that you look at the strength of that bullpen right now. You look at the way that the starters are really rolling. Yes, this has the makings of a playoff team and, a team that can have success in the playoffs. It just a couple more key hits here and there with runners in scoring position. And this is a completely different team. It's a completely different conversation. And who knows, where this team could be if they got those key hits in those key moments. But the pitching, you got to feel really, really happy about where that part of this team is at.
Yeah, no doubt. I think, it's like this push and pull of I'm seeing a thing here that is undeniably excellent and undeniably playoff proof in the pitching and defense. And it's like I know the players can hit. They get Brandon Belt back last night too. Like that's huge. Like they have the weapons. We'll see. I would imagine we're going to continue to be constantly tormented by this offense as we continue into the playoffs and the postseason. It's going to be really frustrating when they lose playoff games like 2-0 or 1-0 and know that, wow, the pitching and defense really was there, much like it was last night. And I hope last night, I suppose, was not a preview of what's to come once we get into playoff time. We'll come back on the other side, get into Jordan Romano, the bullpen, the level of trust. Romano, a couple rough outings in a row. He's dealing with a split fingernail. Should he be shut down for the rest of the season and just bring him back for the postseason? We'll get into that in just a sec. But first, we got to tell you about Jace Medical. Everyone should feel empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace Case. The Jace Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you a peace of mind so that you're not just hoping you have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. Jace Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing doctor consultation and care with their in-house physicians. Don't get caught unprepared. Get $20 off on these life-saving antibiotics today from Jace Medical by using my code LOCKEDON at checkout on jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. All right, let's get alarmist, shall we? Jordan Romano comes in last night, has himself a rough outing, gives up the home run to Austin Wells. Wells' second home run against the Jays in a week as he gets his baseball MLB career rolling here. His baseball career. I sound like a noob. So, Jordan Romano. 1 inning last night again, 2 hits, 2 earned runs, gets the 2 strikeouts. The stuff looked pretty good at the close of the inning. It looked maybe like his velo was down a little bit. He threw it like 95 a couple times at the start of the inning. He kind of oscillates and fluctuates, I feel like, all the time with his velo, so maybe that's not too much of a concern. But the fingernail obviously kept him out for a couple days. Where are you at with Jordan Romano and your level of fear or concern about that split fingernail being something that could cause him some problems? He was made officially available last night. It's all good to go. Everyone's, it's all fine. But, just thinking about what I would do if I had a split fingernail, I would call into work sick, probably. I'm a coward, but throwing a baseball 100 miles an hour with a split fingernail seems hard. Are you concerned, Mike? Dr. DiStefano, please, what you got?
Yeah, like I guess you could say I'm a little concerned. You look at the the two appearances that he's had with the split fingernail, and they haven't been good, right? And
Hmm.
Tampa gave up a couple of runs in the game the other day, and then again last night against New York in the ninth inning comes in a tie game and gives up a 2-run homer. So he's been tagged, and I know that he came out and he said that the fingernail wasn't really didn't impact him in that game against Tampa, and it wasn't really all that effective. But ultimately, it's you're giving up some hits, buddy. You're giving up some runs, and that's not what you want. So maybe it would be just best case scenario for the Blue Jays and for Romano. If yeah, I mean, I think if you shut him down for the rest of the season, you just tell him, listen, wrap that bad boy up. Let's try and get some, I don't know, what you can really put on a cracked fingernail to heal it. I honestly have no idea, but like, let's try and get that thing
Just like
all
eat
healed up
lots of
for a week
cheese
from
for the
now.
calcium or something. Yeah, I don't really know.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Like, can you? Like, I have no idea how to heal a cracked fingernail. To be quite honest with you, I'm not a fingernail doctor, cuticle doctor by any means, but I think it probably would be the best case scenario for both him and the Blue Jays. The problem is like they still don't have a spot locked up, right? So
Yeah.
they still are going to need someone to close out games. Luckily for them, though, like they made a trade for Jordan Hicks this offseason or this at the deadline, and he's been lights out. So like
Yeah.
they do have someone who I think could fill in as a starter or as a back end of the bullpen guy, throws gas and has been a closer in the past when he was with the Cardinals at some point. So, there's a guy who could go in his place if they do, take him out for the season and say, hey, rest up for the playoffs. But again, like at the same time, it's not locked in yet. So
No,
eh,
you might want
it's
them. Yeah.
it's you
Like,
might need him, you might want him because he's still a really good pitcher. But how much more confident are you going to be? Because if you throw him out there again and he gets hit around for a third straight game with his cracked fingernail, now I think the concern really starts to set in. So do you want to get to that point or do you need him? That's a good question. And that's not a situation that I want to be in. So I do kind of feel bad for John Schneider and the Jays in that regard.
yeah, I mean, Romano, if we like, it's just the timing of it, right? If it was,
Yeah.
this was like early September, it'd be like, oh, it's a little blip, it'll be fine. But for him to give up 4 earned runs in his last 2 outings, which is as many earned runs as he had given up, I believe, since the start of August in total, like, it's just the timing adds a sense of fear and concern to it all that, I just prefer to live without, frankly. Do I think it's like an existential concern regarding the fate of the Blue Jays this year? Probably not. Like, I think you can probably rest him up and have him ready to go for the playoffs next week. 6 days, I guess, between now and the start of the playoffs. Again, I also am no cuticle doctor, so I am not certain, but it feels, what you got?
I'm just looking at his game logs right now. He
Yeah.
hasn't given up. So he gave up 2 runs in Tampa and gave up 2 runs last night to the
Yeah.
Yankees. He hasn't done that where he's given up 2 earned runs since April 9th
April 9th against the Angels. Yeah.
is the last time that he gave up um,
More than one
two
earned
runs or
run.
more in a game.
Yeah.
2 earned runs
He's
or more in a game. He's done it back to back now. So
he's important. He's really good and gives that bullpen like a sense of inevitability at times. And to have that shaken in the final week of the season doesn't exactly make you feel awesome. That said, you mentioned Jordan Hicks. Erik Swanson came in and had a clean inning last night. Tim Meza's been absolutely lights out. Like, this is a pretty deep bullpen by design.
yeah.
We know this. They have gone about crafting this bullpen pretty deftly, I would say. You have your issues with the front office all you want. I actually think like they've built this team about as well as they could. That just the performance of some of the key hitters is not really like, that's not on Ross Atkins to make Vlad hit balls in the air. But yeah, I
Well,
think
here's where the fandom's gonna come in. It was on Ross Atkins to trade
fire
Gabby
him, send him to
Marino.
the sun. Yeah.
Well, when you trade Gabby Marino, who's been unbelievable for the Diamondbacks, and
Mm.
also a fan favorite in Lourdes Gurriel, you make that trade for Varsho, hasn't really turned out as well as you'd want it to. That you can
I'll,
place on.
I'll push
on the
back
bad
on
boy
that one.
Atkins.
I'll push back on that one. Moreno, whatever. He's a prospect. I am usually pro get rid of prospects at the first chance you can. And I think Jansen and Kirk, until Jansen got hurt, like that was a pretty darn good duo to have as your catchers. I think Kirk's been awesome defensively as well. I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. I'm not missing Gabby Moreno this season. And frankly, Lourdes Gurriel had driven me crazy by the end with his like crazy oscillations in play. And while Dalton Varsho has not had those oscillations, he's mostly just been bad at the plate. He's an unbelievable defender. He's an unbelievable base runner. And I think that is actually really valuable. And it kind of gives me a lot of confidence in, again, the sort of fundamentals, to sound like an old grizzled baseball man. Like the stuff that matters in the playoffs, Dalton Varsho is going to bring them in a way I'm not really sure Lourdes Gurriel does. Now, that said, would I prefer Teoscar Hernandez on this team than Erik Swanson, considering how deep this bullpen is and how they've built this bullpen so successfully over the course of the season? Yeah, I would much rather have Teoscar right now than Erik Swanson, but, we can't go back and relitigate all of that. With Romano, I think, obviously you got to kind of take your cues from him. How's he feeling? I'm sure the medical staff has way more intel on how this is going to work, but I would be perfectly all right if they just shut him down for the rest of the season. They only need to win 3 of these last 5 games, and probably not 3, right? Like you can probably get in by winning 2 of them. You don't want to leave it to fate in the when you get to the weekend or anything like that, but just the schedule the Mariners have, playing the Astros still, and then up against the Rangers over the weekend for 4 games, I believe. Like, you're probably going to be all right. And I think the downside of not having Romano, and like, feel free to call me an idiot if they miss the playoffs because Jordan Romano doesn't come in for a big game over the weekend and they lose it. But I think the downside of not having Romano at 100% for the playoffs is significantly more than the risk of not making the playoffs throughout the rest of this week. But you don't want to get too cute with it, I suppose, either. Any last parting shots on this game, on Romano, on the bullpen, before we let things wrap up here in our debut episode of Locked On Jays, Mike?
Let's hope we get some offense tonight, man. I mean, it's going to be tough with Gerrit Cole, but as you mentioned, they've actually had some success against him in the past. But boy, after last night's stinker at the plate, hopefully we get some of these guys who can turn it around and, get one of those 3 wins tonight and take a little bit of the pressure off of this club.
Should the Blue Jays get in touch with Alek Manoah, just have him on hand in the dugout to intimidate Gerrit Cole, as it seems that he's pretty good at doing. He seems to be the anti-Cole. They didn't have him last week on the team, and Cole owned them. I'm just saying, maybe Alek Manoah can contribute to this playoff run in some way, shape, or form. After all we've been through this season. Just a thought, but we'll leave it there. We'll come back tomorrow and recap Game 2 against the Yankees. Gerrit Cole going. Who's on tap for the Jays tonight? I'm bad at this.
Barrios.
Yes, Jose Barrios. Gerrit Cole should be a good one, and hopefully a little more offense. Hopefully we get good news on Romano, and it'd be nice to see Brandon Belt get back into the groove here a little bit too after coming back from the IL. That's all coming up tomorrow. Thanks so much for tuning in, and thrilled to have you with us for the stretch run here on Locked On Blue Jays. Have a good one. Bye-bye.